Hello, good morning, viewers. You're most welcome. You are watching Focus on Parliament, and I'm your host, Harris Ocampo. Now, do grab yourself a cup of Ugandan coffee and get ready to be engaged, informed, and educated. In studios, I have eminent citizens who are going to help us understand the topic of this discussion, which is a focus on the formation, evolution, and the challenges of political parties in Uganda and the way forward to a better political culture in the country. Dr. Mwebesa Ndebesa, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you. Mwambusia.
Mwambusa, thank you for the correction. And next is another important citizen, Mr. Otieno Joseph, who is a UPC ideologue, but also a common figure within the media. You're most welcome, sir.
I'm very commonly welcome. Thank you.
Sorry, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good man.
How is UPC?
UPC is as strong as founded, but of course sick like most of the other political parties.
And it is still everywhere.
UPC is still everywhere, and I'm delighted that that it is going to get better. But at the moment, yes, we are as sick as all the other political organizations, thanks to NRA.
Yeah, you're still confident there is a political party called UPC.
It is the future.
All right. All right, so that will be part of the conversation, and let's delve right into it. We shall start with Mr. Mwambusa. He will help us with, he's a teacher of political history at Makerere University, and I think he's the better man to help our viewers understand the origin of the kind of politics that we have in the country.
Thank you. The origins of the politics in the country, there is always politics. So the politics of the origin of politics in Uganda is as way back as when there was organized society, because politics is about competition and contestation of power. Who gets what and how and where.
Yes.
So maybe you are talking about the modern politics around multi-party politics.
Yes, the political party politics.
Political party politics, yes, I think it is the colonial government then, colonial state then, allowed formation of political parties to lead Uganda to independence way back in 1952. So that is when the first political party, the Uganda National Congress, led by I.K. Musazi, was founded, and then in 54 you had the Democratic Party. In 55 was Progressive Party, which was not progressive. In 58, I think there was Uganda National Movement at one time or thereabout. In 59, Uganda People's Union, yeah, which later merged with Uganda National Congress, Obote Wing, in 1960 to found UPC. And then I think after 1961 elections, when the Mengo establishment realized that political parties were here to stay, they also formed the party KY or King Alone. And so on and so on. We have had very many political parties founded. Some have not lived to see their first birthday. Others have continued to limp. Others have continued in a de facto way, or in a de jure and not a de facto. Others de facto, not de jure. So we have had political parties growth in Uganda stunted. There has been stunting of political parties. Some of the challenges of political party stuntedness are internal to the political parties. Others are external. Others have a structural nature, not necessarily organizational nature, because our society is still a young society. I mean, Uganda is a young country. You talk about a country which is how many years old? 68 or thereabout.
Yes.
That is a young country by all standards. Political parties are new. The population is basically peasant. Most of the economy is still actually our economy is still poor. Uganda is not yet a nation state in the true sense of the word. We are heterogeneous, meaning we are very divided. You are talking about multi-ethnic society, multi-religious society, multicultural society, and multi-party society. So we are not a unified society, we are a polarized society. So some of the challenges you see in political parties are a mirror of polarization outside the political parties. If you look at even a religion, there is polarization. It is not easy for a bishop to come from a different ethnic group. You see polarization within Islam. You see polarization at places of work. So what is happening in political parties is a reflection of society. So the challenge is, the onus is on political class in Uganda to make sure that they work towards creating a nation state. State formation should precede actually everything else. Unfortunately, we have not concentrated on state formation. We have not had a leader who can give us a political order that addresses issues of polarization or multiculturalism in society, because you cannot have a political order in a multicultural society like this one when you don't have a multicultural mind, when you don't want to promote pluralism. Let me put it in these two words. If you have a leader who is presiding over a political order that does not believe and respect diversity, does not respect dissent, those two, then you cannot organize society very well when the background is multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, so diverse. So a diverse society needs to have a political order that is suitable to that diverse society. But quite often what we do, we don't design our political systems and political order according to our context. We have cut and paste. So we cut and paste political party multipartism without adapting it to our environment and design it in such a way that it is suitable to our situation. But similarly, we have had cutting and paste illiberalism, especially as from Russia or Germany or Cuba or North Korea, and we have pasted it here as if it would work in a multicultural, multi-party or multicultural, multi-religious, multi-regional, multi-traditional environments, without also adapting it to the situation. So the problem of political parties organization and the problem of all the other organization in Uganda emanates from cut and paste. But our leaders also, especially those at the helm, have not given Ugandans, the Ugandan society, an opportunity to reflect on this when there is no aspiring to be in power. So that we sit back as statesmen and stateswomen and look at the next generation.
Okay.
Somebody, let me conclude with this one. I was a researcher during CA.
Yes.
And it has been brought about that we had the opportunity to dialogue during the CA. No, that was not a clear dialogue because it took place under circumstances in a context when everybody was looking at the next elections. Because we promulgated the Constitution in 1995 and then we had elections hardly a year after in 1996. So everybody was tailoring the constitutional design to suit his coming into power in the following year. We need to have a dialogue in a situation where there is a free atmosphere, when people are not motivated by political posts, so that we agree on the minimum in Uganda, political arrangement, political order, and then we call upon everybody to live by those agreements that we have made.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mwebesa, for that broad overview. But before we delve deep into some of the issues that you have highlighted, I'd like to bring in Mr. Otieno. You are one of the key figures in the UPC, and UPC is one of the founding parties in this country. I'd like to hear from you your reflections on some of the core problems, or what I may call root causes, are the problem of political party practices in the country.
Thank you. I would possibly take a slightly different view, path from Professor, but that's why we're here.
Yeah.
I happen to be a convictionist politician who happens to believe that in this country we have very few politicians, if any, but we have people in politics. I happen also then to be a convictionist UPC, somebody who's driven to UPC from very early on as a young student in Mwiri. And the longer I stayed in UPC, the more I found myself very deeply embedded ideologically. And then over the years, as NRA came in and banned political parties, the more I battled to claim back my political space and to claim back my country, the more I got the opportunity to understand political pluralism around the world. I then went ahead and became lucky, I always say this, and found myself being a member of the British Labour Party, which by some good chance happens to be a sister party of the Uganda People's Congress. In fact, at our founding, as way back as
Which year was that?
This is when I became a member of the Labour, but
Yes.
in the 90s. Okay. And I think last summer when I was in Britain, I was being asked in a very nice way by local councillors in my former constituency that since the outgoing member of parliament from my area is the current mother of parliament, and she said that she's not going to stand again, whether or not I would consider to put my name forward in what they call the long list to be in the pot of people then who would succeed her. That was very generous. But the point and the reason I'm pushing that is this, that involving myself in the Labour Party at a time when I was in exile and at the same time fighting for return to multipartyism in Uganda and my own return in Uganda gave me opportunity to understand more of these things in terms of policy and political parties. Then, while in exile also, remember I was in exile when apartheid was still reigning in Southern Africa. So I got involved in liberation politics much more actively than I was at Makerere University. And so today I talk as someone who's got a broad experience across the continent from that practical angle and also then globally. The challenge facing us, and I don't know whether you should talk about the challenge first, is basically, in my opinion, basically leadership.
Now, I wanted us to first look at how these political parties have been founded.
In terms of formations.
Yeah, and try to trace part of the problems in their formation and then how their evolution.
Interestingly, I wanted to hit at those and then trace us back.
Right.
And that's why I brought in the Labour Party very deliberately. That because in part we're having this conversation because of the turmoil facing political organizations, and particularly this week, the beauty around and shirts and non-shirts and monies and Museveni in FDC. I was saying that, okay, I'll make it, I was saying this, that while I solidified myself around this, and while I was actually highlighting leadership for you, I was actually saying that it's leadership also that gave us the reemergence of early political parties and organizations. The British Labour Party left supported the Uganda foundation and formation of the Uganda National Congress way back in 49, 50 or thereabout, in fact 50, 51 or thereabout. Some of the members then believed that the then movement that the Ignatius Musaises and others and the Ngurs of this world were pushing needed to be translated into a political party, and a political party of the left, and that political party would then become the organized official voice of the people of Uganda to push for our independence. These guys consciously mobilized across the country, constituted themselves into a political party, and once they became that, they pushed towards our independence. Looking back, ironically, Ignatius Musazi was pushed off in 1959 by the delegates. But the early founding was this, that political parties then, and particularly in this case, Uganda National Congress, coming from a grassroots organization, it was democratic, it had structured out systems, to the extent that between 1952 and 1959, at Mbali Delegates Conference, when Ignatius Musazi was expelled over ideological questions, the expulsion did not require the police to come. No thugs to throw stones. It was party members using party existing structures. In other words, what I was trying to say, that the challenges are really question of leadership, question of structures, question of organizations, but most importantly, conscious purpose in terms of ideology. In Uganda National Congress, you can see the conscious founding values around us. The Democratic Party founded, I think you pushed my train of thought a bit, so a bit mixed up a bit. Yes, the Democratic Party came in to counter Uganda National Congress at the time, but also at the same time to push for the then Catholic interests, that had been substantially suppressed over 70 years by the British establishment, Mengo, and then what they considered the Protestant establishment. And because Uganda National Congress then, most of the founding leaders were Protestants, the Catholic establishment saw Uganda National Congress as the third Protestant force, and so therefore a threat to their being. Hence the founding of DP predominantly as a Catholic-leaning political party. One of the reasons why I'm saying this is that political parties should not be founded on whims on individuals. It should not be found on the interests of groups of interest and cliques of interest. Political parties should really be founded around deeply coherent sets of values, usually linked to grievances. Uganda National Congress, hence Uganda People's Congress, and that's why we're solid, by and large. The Democratic Party
is solid?
Oh, yes, but I'll come back to that. In terms of, I know what you're saying, and of course, many people would want to pray that the solidity I'm talking about.
You don't have to pray. The solidity is not there.
No, but I'll explain. And of course, I'm a UPC professor, and I'll explain.
And that's why you will say it is solid, because you will be subjective.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So the Democratic Party gets itself founded around grievances about marginalization of Catholics in Uganda. Exactly. Fast forward, if you push DP aside and push the UPC aside, and notwithstanding what Professor is talking about, the rest of the emergent political organizations, I think this is a position I'm trying to push, you will see that they've been around almost certainly sentiments and emotions, and perhaps around personalities other than coherent apparent ideologies, including Mr. Museveni's funny NRA, which must collapse once he retires. And sort of that's the point I'm trying to make, and in terms of the foundation. Now, beyond that, it's not surprising that where we are at the moment, some of all the conflicting things are now about personalities, and as Professor says, not around issues. In UPC's case, why I'm extremely confident about our solidity, I'm saying as a political party, Museveni, DP, and everybody else ganged up against Uganda People's Congress. To the time of the CA, the only enemy of the Republic of Uganda, by everybody else, including the helpful CA, was UPC. Up to 1996, we were the only one single enemy. So everyone else ganged up against us. Okay. So in other words, Museveni has worked very hard to try and get this grand UPC, pull it and sink it for dead. We couldn't die. Why? Because we had an idea. Number two, once he suddenly realized, He couldn't kill an idea. The idea now is underwater, which UPC, for me as Otieno, we are trying to pull it off the waters, put it on the table, cleanse it, and you realize it's real gold. Why? That is the solidity I'm talking about.
All right, we are coming back to that, Mr. Otieno. Thank you very much for that overview. Mr. Ndebesa, you've had Mr. Otieno. Seems to suggest that because you earlier spoke about the stunted nature, the stunted growth of political parties in the country.
Yes.
And it seems to trace that to political parties being founded on personalities and not on broad-based values. Actually, there are some members of the public who believe, or some analysts who have said that political parties in Uganda, they have suffered the founders syndrome. They cannot be separated from the founders. Is that your assessment?
I think there is a wrong assessment somewhere. It is not true that political parties in Uganda have not been founded on issues. Maybe you need to qualify it. Are they constructive issues or not constructive issues? But they have been founded on issues. The Uganda National Congress was founded by people who were struggling for economic justice, mainly about marketing of goods, prices, about racialized economy, then in the 1950s. So that cannot have been a non-issue. Economic justice is an issue. The Democratic Party was founded on justice because the colonial political order had marginalized the Catholics, especially when it came to recruitment in jobs and allocation of resources, especially education opportunities. So the Roman Catholics, it is not because they believed in a religion from Italy or Pope. It's because on the day-to-day basis, politically they had been marginalized, especially from Mengo. Remember, there had never been a Catholic king in the rest of Uganda, by the way. Neither had there ever been a Catholic prime minister. Apparently, up to now, even since independence, we have not had a Catholic president. None. So there is a grievance which might be latent. And if that grievance comes up, you don't dismiss it as useless. It is a grievance because sometimes allocation of resources and values is along religion. So there was a reason. Kabaka Yeka was founded to promote the privileges of Mengo. You can't say that was not an issue, only that it was an issue not of justice as UNC, but an issue of privileges. So you can't say that foundation was not about issues. Now, sometimes even people, when they congregate...
Mao actually calls it an ideology. When
the political party, when the political players, the political class actually create an identity around religion or around ethnicity, people think that that's not an issue. It is an issue of identity.
Fair enough.
And it is not necessarily negative. No. Actually, UPC, in some regions, actually generally, was a religion of the Protestants. In fact, euphemistically, I hope the audience know euphemism, saying things by another word. Euphemistically, some people called UPC United Protestants of Canterbury. And the Democratic Party was Dinya Papa.
Responded to that.
That's how some people understood it. The religion of the Catholics.
Exactly.
Now, those were issues, and they were national, by the way. That made DP become national and UPC national. Now, even currently, the political parties may, on the surface, look to be national, but if you remove the mask, you find they have got a regional orientation. The tendency for people to congregate around those identities, especially now, the most important is now ethnic identities or regional alignment. Those are issues, and they are inevitable in these developing countries because poverty is rampant and you can use money now. The money issue also came up, but also we have not formed a nation. and the political class or our political leaders have not concentrated on creating a nation other than rhetorics of patriotism and all this and all this. We have not deliberately tried to create a nation like Nyerere did. Nyerere deliberately created Tanzania as a nation state. Weakness is notwithstanding.
Before I lose your point,
yes.
Mr. Davis. So you're saying that FDC, NRM, and NUP are founded more or less the same on ethnicity than
you see, openly,
values.
Openly, publicly, there is no political party which will say that it has got most of its support from the ethnic group, normally of the leader. I think, by the way, let me mention this before I forget it. One of the weaknesses of FDC is that it has not had a natural constituency. That's why it is evaporating very fast. By the way, NUP may not disappear very fast because it has started with a natural constituency. Which is Buganda and the Roman Catholic Church and the youth. Youth are also a natural constituency.
When you talk to members of the NUP, they disagree.
Well, what would you say now?
Their Secretary General is from Western Uganda. They have vice presidents from the 4 regions of the country.
You see, there is a surface.
In their conception, they have a national.
There is a surface and the underneath.
Okay.
How people perceive you is what is real. This is not to blame NUP or to blame FDC or whatever. Actually, FDC had a lot of support when it started from northern Uganda around the issue of insecurity in that region. But now that support seems to be going away. Now this issue of ethnicity have started coming up. They say the Nandara, Amriat, and the Ekanya faction axis is Eastern, and that the Uganda and the road mayor is the Buganda element tied up with the West. So those things will come up, and not because necessarily because of the political parties per se, their weakness, but also the situation, the reality in Uganda is that ordinary people understand politics based on some of those identities. It is not only in Uganda, even in Europe, identities are coming up. You know, people are fighting immigrants. Trump in America, his politics revolves around white supremacism. So identity politics seems to be coming back. And that partly contributes to the disorganization of political parties. But also the population, not necessarily political class, the population also tend to look at politics from that identity angle. By the way, how many people even intermarry? I know in urban centers, there has been a way of intermarrying. But if you go in a rural setting where the majority of the Ugandans live, you find it is very hard to intermarry across ethnic divide. That shows you that the ground in Uganda is such that identities are still strong. Even clan identities are still strong. You cannot wish them away. Nevertheless, the political class should transcend them. Unfortunately, the political class seems to use those identities as instruments of either coming to power or retaining power. Never, don't mind about the denials. You look at the public discourse, the public narrative. When people are talking about Gambano, you know, where does it come from? Where does it come from? When people, Tobakoye, where do those public narratives come from? If you were to study critical at a micro level and you go to every society in Uganda, you will hear more of Gambanogus everywhere. That means it is a reality in Uganda. Unfortunately, our political class, because they want to take advantage of the confusion of the general population understanding and perception of the popular understanding, they continue to use those undercurrents as instruments for either coming to power or retaining power, thus compounding the situation. But let's not dismiss these realities. These are realities in Uganda. I have always said here and everywhere that Uganda is not yet a nation state in the typical sense of the word. And it is multicultural, multi-religious, multi-regional, multi-this and that. And therefore, we need to be sensitive to these issues rather than dismissing them. Let's not dismiss. Let's be sensitive to some of these issues and not claim. You know, there is a rate of claims, counterclaims, especially hypocrisy. Political hypocrisy is killing this country. We want some kind of a nyerere. You don't address the issue of ethnicity or tribalism or identity and wish it away. If you are not wishing it away, you are putting it on others. It is him who is sectarian, not us. When actually you are equally sectarian. So can we address those issues? But again, what disorganizes political parties is this hypocrisy of pretending that we are in a multi-party system when actually we are not in a multi-party system, at least at the level of operations, of practical. And we have shadow state. We have a shadow state. You know, you and me and everybody knows that we have a shadow state. So we begin having shadow parties and we begin have shadow governance. And a shadow means that you are hiding something.
I'm going to come back to that.
Please.
Dr. Mewesa. Let me bring in Mr. Tieno. The good doctor seems to suggest that ethnicity is still the big elephant in the room.
Actually, I have put it correctly. Yeah. It is an elephant in the room. That expression, sorry to intervene, that expression means that there is something looming big in the room, but people pretend that the elephant is not there.
We seem not to get it.
No, people pretend, hypocrisy and pretense that the elephant is not there when the elephant is there. Why don't we say there is an elephant and then we see how to handle the elephant before it kicks you?
Very good. And it seems to suggest that as a nation, we have failed to handle this big elephant in the room, and therefore we cannot have a nation state. What do you say?
You know, as I said from the beginning, I had a very deliberate thread, which sort of I missed, but I can try and pull it together a little. Part of my contextual earlier conversation was bound to be that at independence, let me just start from there, that by independence we had granted three political parties, but three particular parties with very clear sets of identity, three clear sets of leadership, clear foundations in terms of ideology, including their rootings and grievances. Granted, two of them were Baganda-based, but as I said, for KY, actually for its major strength, the fact that it was actually one pushed in by the Kabaka, as it were. Why I'm taking that line is because part of the conversations about the challenges facing political parties at the moment.
Exactly.
In the event that these political parties, with their leadership, continued as they were at the time, you know, the challenge was for DP, I normally challenge my friends in the Democratic Party to prove their nationhood beyond Buganda and nationhood and interest beyond the Catholic establishment, Catholic grievances, and make themselves generally a political party of grievances, and rather beyond the Catholic grievances, but one which generally pushes for truth and justice. And so therefore, all young, emergent Ugandan generation, including our children, when they come and then they say, this party represents this, stands for truth and justice, this was the grievances, this is the trajectory, the leadership is MBC, I am going to join it. It would have been very interesting, you know, if KY then continued as a political party, which, by the way, in multi-party democracies, in stable democracies, it can actually it could have continued to become as a minority party in a competitive way. Possibly, you know, of course, they went ahead and had Daoud Ucheng under interesting circumstances outside Buganda, you know, and the same maybe the biggest strength is possibly a 20-30%, you know, support in the country, but retains in established democracies. They are there. Scottish Nationalist Party, for example, the Welsh the Welsh Labour Party, as it were. These guys swing, and as I said, in their case, they had seats at Westminster, and they knew they will almost certainly not govern in Westminster with the majority, but they ended up and came out with an arrangement that saw themselves push for Scottish independence, as it were, to give it just as an example. So it would have been very interesting how that would have happened. But in the broader scheme of things, if I put KY aside and pick on the Democratic Party and then Uganda People's Congress, I'm actually generally convinced that these political parties were parties founded on the depth of ideological drivings. I hope my piece in the Sunday Monitor runs on these very particular matters, in which I suggest the challenges facing political parties today was the killings by NRA when Mr. Museveni and DP came in 1985 to overthrow the UPC government and then ban political parties. So the banning of political parties, then, when I was trying to tell you that we were rather lonely, so you can see my trauma, it meant that politics up to the CEA was personal merit driven. And politics up to now, by 1996, and by the time Kizza Besigye came in 1999, 2000,
that's a little research here now. But if we are to reflect backwards, judging by the number of members of parliament that have remained of UPC, they seem to be concentrated in northern Uganda.
You're really disorganizing in a very unfair way.
I want to kind of
But it's completely not linked to the point I was trying to make.
It is linked because earlier the doctor made an analysis where he said that one of the challenges of political parties in the country is that they seem to have an orientation on ethnicity, and he made that for FDC, NRM, NUP, KY, DP. You talked about DP. The only party that was remaining is UPC. When we judge where UPC is still strong, it is where the founding members or the first president comes from.
No, with respect, if you had allowed me to advance this as moderator, it would have actually helped the cause of this program.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I was trying to build the rootings on how political parties have been killed by NRM Museveni and how ended up in this way.
Before we go to what Mr. Museveni has done, I wanted to look at the foundation of the...
Can I make a rare interjection? Right. You allowed Professor to develop his points up to the contextual realities.
All right,
and
go on.
On this occasion, you haven't allowed me, and I'm sort of losing it. And I rarely do this on television, to tell you quite frankly. Go on. And I've been on television for quite some time.
All right.
But the point really is that although I've not done formal teaching, I'm a very, very definitive teacher because I've been a party chairman for a very long time. So I really want your audience to get what I'm trying to talk about.
All right.
I was trying to say this, that...
you are party chairman for which party?
I've been party chairman for Uganda People's Congress for a very long time and party chairman for the Labour Party for a very long time. And I say so with massive pride, and I don't think there are many people in this country, including many party leaders of all political parties in the country, including Museveni, who match some of my capacity in some of those things. Okay. But that's a slightly different topic.
Okay.
But I was simply saying that as NRA and DP came to kill political parties, as political party emerged and came, and then Besigye came to run, politics of what they call personal merit politics and monetized politics entered. While this happened, by the time we came to the realities of the year 2004, thereabout, political parties that existed at the time had been substantially weakened. While we now had profiliation of political parties, then FDC, ANT, and others now, we've not really had requisite related leadership in terms of issues and values. What then is the reality in which we are now? We are now discussing symptoms of the underlying things. Part of the argument I actually want to make is that I don't necessarily agree, for example, that notwithstanding the identity realities we have in this country, that we cannot have political parties that grow across political identities, although identity polity is a reality. The founding president of Uganda National Congress is Ignatius Musazi. And in fact, when Musazi was expelled in 1959 in a delegates conference in Mbale and Obote elected in the Zabzesia, Obote and I'm going to talk about the leadership and structures and systems. Obote respectfully went to Mbale and looked for Ignatius Musazi first to talk to him, to make sure that Musazi was his president. Until Musazi said, well, this has happened, this is whatever you can go on. So he went and took over the leadership of UPC. So that's a symbol. But beyond that, what was it? UPC then moved on by 1980 general elections. I know people in NRA really don't like this because there's a fact. By 1980 general elections, with the exception really of Buganda, we had membership and representations across the country, number one. And number two, the genuine membership of Uganda People's Congress that I have today, although the concentration of parliamentarians, as I say, would be in Lango, which is absolutely true, generally, the party is national representative. Part of what I'm trying to push is beyond the mess in FDC and DP and NUP and even the ANT, because when ANT
and not UPC.
No, I've said UPC and I've said UPC. Beyond all this, including by the way, my argument is that all political organizations in this country are sick, including NRA. In NRA, Mr. Museveni says one thing, his son writes something else. Their secretary generals go mum. They're like tongue-tied people. That's my argument. So I'm saying all these things are there, and I'm saying these things are there in part because of the arguments I've actually given. The nearest party that is sort of intact is ANT. But even in ANT, you and I, we have whispers of when is Mitigation going to move from building structures, to doing the real things that people see. But I'm saying what is lacking, in my opinion, is the culture that Museveni has created in the last 40 years. So now political parties are basically spaces for people to do pocket change, do business deals, go for elected positions in parliament, and rather than what the founding values of political parties at the time did, meaning politics for ideology. Because politics for ideology will take you across the identity divide and in many cases sometimes social and cultural divide. But yes, political parties, you're right, Professor, across the world have strongholds. Yeah. So having strongholds is not a problem. Yeah. And political parties, including governing political parties, will have certain areas where they don't win votes. The only difference is that when they take power, they offer services and deliver for all.
Fair enough. We are going to take a very short commercial break, and when we return, we shall continue the conversation.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. You are watching Focus on Parliament, and we are looking at the formation, evolution, and influence of political parties in Uganda and how we can improve our political culture as a nation. With me in the studios, I have Mr. Mwelesa Ndelesa and Mr. Otieno Joseph, a UPC ideologue, to help us understand this topic better. Now, please do follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Civic Space TV. Doctor, you said we have failed to form a nation state as a nation. And we are more than 68 years after independence as an independent nation. We're about 60 years.
62, that's 61.
61. Yes, that's quite some time now. We should, as a group of people, have able to forge a way how to coexist. What do you attribute that failure to?
No, there are very many factors why we have not formed a nation state, and even the functioning states in the Western world or even Asia, they took very many years to form states. But there are also those countries which have nearer come to a nation state, like the case, like say, of Tanzania, with their problems, especially of Zanzibar notwithstanding, where they have put certain things correct. But these are partly historical challenges because Uganda as a country, as a hardware, if I can use a computer metaphor, was created by the British. It's a British creation. It did not evolve here that one tribe, for example, one nationality went and conquered others, assimilated them, and created a natural nation state. No. It was the British who came and put in a country different ethnic groups in one country called Uganda, and to make matters worse, they used divide and rule. So there are certain identity, emotional, sentimental fundamentals that are still strong. We can't wish them away. We need to recognize them, appreciate them, and see how to overcome them, and not pretend that they are not there. If I can use even an example, forget about the bigger Uganda. If you go to Kasese and you see how even the people of Rwenzori region are failing to live together. You have the Bakonzo, you have the Bamba, you have the Bagabo, you have the Basongora, you have the Banyabindi, you have the Babwisi, they are all creating kingdoms. You can see how in Uganda everybody wants a district. He comes from Tororo. You know how Tororo, the Iteso, and the Japadora have failed to work together. And every day people are asking for a district.
This Tochiano would disagree.
No, you can't disagree. They have failed to have a district. They are I normally call them rat districts. Why? The first...
I don't eat rats.
The first demand for these smaller districts in the NRM era was in Tororo at a public rally when some people marched a rat demanding for a district. Up to now, they have never had a district because of those challenges. Those are not political parties, mind you. The polarization in the country is not along only political parties. It is along ethnic lines. And we should address it. We should have a dialogue about how we can live together and not pretend. You know, there is a lot of hypocrisy and pretense that everything has come okay and there is no division. And yet tomorrow you are giving a district along a along an ethnic group. And you are failing to address the cases. I can go back at the Kasese question. For example, when the president or the Bakonzo were given of Singapore rule, it incorporated the Bamba and Babwisi. They also later they refused to be under the Bakonzo. They created Obudingia Bwagamba. And then that Obudingia included parts of the Kasese people, the Bakonzo. They started quarreling. Then the Basongoro, on the other hand, they said, we can't also be under the Bakonzo. We need our kingdom. And they have it, by the way, although it is not officially recognized. Anyway, I was giving that example. All these undercurrents and tensions are everywhere. Even Uganda, which is supposed to be the United Kingdom, you know what happened when people were killed because of the Kayunga incident. There is something simmering out there in Kochi. The king cannot go to which is this Nakasongora, Bururi. He can't go to Bururi. You know? Now, are those political parties? They are not political parties. So there are other challenges that the country has. So to go back at your question, why do we have these challenges? We have these challenges because we are a polarized society along ethnic lines, along religious lines, along regional lines. Now there could be even undercurrents along class lines because some regions are developing faster than others. There is a glaring big gap, wealth gap between certain regions and other regions. That is also going to add on. And then there is a question of political leaders, the political class, who want to take advantage of those identity divisions and use them for political capital. Pretense notwithstanding. Pretending, no, we are not using that one. No, for us, we are nationalists. For us, we are patriotic. For us, we are this. When the reality is that people are still divided. I thought that we would look at the Uganda questions. There is what I call Uganda questions, which I teach and have even talked about. They are still Uganda questions. Uganda questions, a question means it has not been resolved.
Yeah.
So the first one, the bigger one now, is a national question. Can we first address the national question? But within the national question, you have, for example, I'm going to say the historical questions in Uganda. We have the Buganda question. We have the North-South question. We have the Rwenzori question. We have the Bunyoro question. We have the Eastern question. We have the Karamoja question. We have the military question. You have Beiru Bahima question. You have Bachiga Fumbira question. You have Catholics, Protestants, Muslim question. You can enumerate all these questions.
All these
questions means there are certain contentious issues that have never been resolved.
All right.
And they need to be resolved consciously, sensitively, and not wished away. You can't wish them away. They will continue catching up with you one way or the other. So these ones spill over into political arrangements. But on top of that, you have the political class or the government which takes advantage of these divisions. For example, now, I would not be, if I was NRM, I would not be celebrating that there is a problem in FDC. That problem in FDC will spill over into NRM. That polarization you see in FDC will be also, it is already in the NRM. NRM, there is now the Turkumain. Is it Turkumain? What do you call it? There are those who are on the main road and there are those who are on the smaller road.
Standby generator.
The generator. That is also a tension. And standby generator.
Yeah.
That one is there. What is keeping them together is because they are in power.
Yes.
When somebody actually tries to come up with a divergent organization of you or whatever, they can call you and give you money because they have state money.
Okay.
They can call you and give you a political post and you keep quiet. That's how it is kept there artificially.
All right.
But the polarization are there and they need to be addressed politically, consciously, in a public space so that we see how to resolve. We can't resolve problems once and for all. As I've told you, Uganda is a young state. It is multi-ethnic, multinationality, multi-religious. The problems cannot be overcome in a day, but there should be a positive trajectory towards creating a nation state. Unfortunately, the hypocrisy and pretense, which started even with UPC, even UPC used to pretend that everything is okay except Semogereri. Everything is okay except Buganda. When the fishers came out, it was not a Buganda question that overthrew Obote. He was overthrown by Idi Amin. Idi Amin was not a Muganda. He was overthrown by Rutwa. I remember in 1980, the UPC would think that the problem is the DP, that it is his Baganda, and then they actually overthrew.
Fair enough.
Overthrew UPC. Why do the political class, pretend? When I say them, I am one of the loners who is saying those ones.
Yeah.
They say, that is a prophet of doom. I am telling you, I am not a prophet of doom. I mean well for Uganda. I want Uganda to cease to be a mere geographic expression. Will it be done in one day? No. But there should be a process of building a nation state as number one priority, without pretense, without hypocrisy, without appearing to put things on the surface and we look dry. Do you know cow dung?
Yeah.
When it is, you know, when it is very dry, like in this dry season, and the cow defecates somewhere in the morning, by around 2 there, when you look at the cow dung, you think it is dry. Put there your foot, it will go down. Let's not pretend.
Right.
Let's address the question. The national question is not resolved, and it cannot be resolved by only one party. It must be resolved by many. Can I make a last statement here?
Please, because I want to bring
even this question of individual merit. Me, I partly believe it, and partly I don't believe it. There was no individual merit. There was a political outfit called NRM, which came from the bush, which knew it was one party, but pretended it was not one party, it was a movement. When it was one party, whenever we would go to elections, President Museveni would come up and say, that is before the multi parties, he would say, we have defeated them. then people would say, whom have you defeated? That we have defeated them. We have defeated multi-parties. That means there were divisions, identities present then, but we pretended they were not there, that we were all in the movement and we were under individual merit. You cannot play politics around individuals. That is bastardizing politics.
All right.
That's why political parties are necessary to aggregate the different ideas of a certain section, and another one aggregates ideas and values of another and interests of another section. Then you compete, you allow space for competition of ideas and values. Instead, what we are having now is competition of thuggery.
All right.
When you go for elections, whether the main elections or these by-elections, you see competition of thuggery, not competition of ideas and values.
All right, we are going to shift gears to political party.
But don't run away from competition of thuggery.
No, we are not going to run away, Doctor. And your point on not stopping the pretense on
hypocrisy
on the serious national issues is well made. But before we shift gears, I would like to bring in Mr. Otieno on the same question, and maybe to respond to some of the claims that the doctor has made. And the question is on why, if you agree that Uganda has failed to form the nation state, if you agree, why is it so?
You know, Professor is Professor of History.
Yes.
And maybe to be fair to him, since he did not give the suggestions, proposals, maybe you have to ask him his perspective to that. Interestingly, as UPC, I would object to some of what he said, but also on the other, I actually have a very different perspective. The early question, I'm still holding on to our early grievances. Part of what I actually wanted to say was that independence and leading to independence, we had national leaders who were genuinely quite committed to forging this Republic of Uganda, notwithstanding all the conflict and diversity questions. But also, I would be wanting to know, and as you know, I do scholarly writing, and I want to hope that over the next few years, that I'm consciously established in terms of the alternative way forward for this country in diversity, meaning partly the Uganda question, but also clarifying my mind with the help of the, academic leaders and indeed political leaders like Professor Ndebese, giving us what would have been. It is at the stage of what would have been where I sort of disagree. At independence, the conversation around Lancaster House, we cannot dismiss it as it was not a sufficient attempt by Ugandan leaders from across the communities. All the kingdoms were involved, and all the regions which did not have kingdoms, Republican regions, including my own, were represented. These guys actually had very serious conversations, and then the contentions that had not been majorly resolved, with the biggest of one, which was whether Mbale is part of Bukedi or Bugisu. But the most important was the question of the lost counties in Buganda. I think one of the things, talk about either hypocrisy or people trying to fudge ways. You know, it would appear that from independence, Buganda has never been, critiqued. The role of the king of Buganda has never been established, has never been put on the table. Meaning, at independence, all of us agreed and there was a genuine consensus. UPC and Obote gave the best of what we could, in 1962. In 1963...
Through pretending that they were allying when they were actually antagonists.
No, but if you talk about, with respect to Professor of History, and so possibly if you put in, you must have a familiarity with political science element into it. So really, if we had on the table, we won an election, we asked...
Through rigging in Uganda here.
UPC rigged the election in Uganda?
I am saying through rigging because it was UPC-KY alliance and elections in Uganda here were rigged.
Professor, I think you're giving yourself a very huge burden if your students are watching, because we'll have to go back to 1962 and clarify what these things are. So unless you're now for the first time beginning to say that challenging 1962 elections as fudged and then rigged by Uganda,
Mengo.
by Mengo. So Mengo rigged elections, but UPC won. I'm trying to simply say that, well, we won a simple majority as UPC. We asked for a government of national unity, which included Mengo and DP. It's DP that refused to join the government. Now, granted, the breaking news thing is, of course, I know part of what you're trying to refer to, that Mengo did rig. But Mengo's rigging cannot be a burden of responsibility to put on UPC, number two. And then number three.
It was a UPC-KY alliance.
No. That's a simplistic, Professor. The KY alliance was as a result of DP. After DP failed, when DP... No, because what was the table? No, because it's important information and it's at a critical time.
Yeah, important.
After we won the elections, we asked for a government of national unity, involving all parties. DP refused, and then KY came. So KY coming to us cannot be UPC to be blamed, including for the elections that had taken place. Elections already taken place. It was based on the results that was down there, so we can't hold responsible for that, number one. And then number two, 1963. It is the UPC that backed Sir Edward, for the presidency of Uganda. And one of the reasons against our own vice president, who's the King of Busoga, DP backed, the King of Busoga in the meeting in Barara. One of the things we're trying to do was to make Buganda feel at ease at part of the national table. Every time when we say that, then we will say, oh, we're doing a trickery. There is no evidence for that. So meaning UPC cannot get it right. The more we actually do that, I think the more we fudge our history, the more we fudge our reality today, and the more we make it very difficult for the young people of this country to find any route going forward, particularly because if the conversation today is about FDC, one of the things I actually wanted to say, is this, that had, for example, in 1999-90, 2000, Besigye, after falling out with Museveni, and Besigye being in part responsible for the mess of breaking and killing of political parties, had he, for instance, joined traditional UPC or DP, in this case it was easier for him to join DP because I can understand it, him and Winnie, they might have had a very difficult conversation, maybe we would be having two political parties.
Why would you expect Besigye to join the DP?
With the existing political parties already, rather than making his personal merit formation.
No, I'm saying, why did you say that you expected his natural party would be DP?
I did not say natural. I said he could join UPC or naturally DP, because with respect, Winnie possibly would not necessarily join UPC. But I don't want to go into that detail. I already gave a sufficient hint to that. But I can have this conversation, and there are not many people who can have this free conversation on these things. Yeah. So I'm saying that maybe that was a lost opportunity in the year 2000. Since we are critiquing, not to blame, but to create an appreciation. So maybe then from there on, from powerful to reform agenda, we were entrenching personality and personal merit element of polity. Meaning that we lost out of opportunity.
Why didn't UPC also opt to join the Besigye in a reform agenda and the FDC?
And I think these are some of the interruptions I'm trying to talk about. By the time Besigye came up, Professor, we were the lone voice. Yeah. We were the opposition leaders, we were the natural leaders. And by the way, the fact that the mess in FDC today, thank you, Jesus, we didn't join them. So UPC members who were who joined Reform Agenda with the hope, with the key, that Besigye is going to open up for you. Guys, come back to Uganda People's Congress.
Which is also in a mess.
Oh no, we will sort out the mess in Uganda People's Congress.
They can also claim they can sort out.
And the reason is...
That's hypocrisy again.
Okay, let them sort it out. But if there's a dialogue...
You also sort it out yours. You also have a problem. How many UPCs are there?
I did not...
There is Warwiri UPC, there is Akena UPC, there is Ochene UPC.
Yes.
Have you resolved your question also? There is a UPC question. Resolve it before you resolve that.
So you can see, in this country, part of the issue, there are certain things that if you mention, we take a particular trajectory, and I don't think that is going to be honest conversation going forward for this Republic of Uganda.
No, the honest conversation is that we should appreciate the challenges, the questions, and address them. Don't pretend UPC is safe. It is also not safe.
No, UPC was not safe from 1985.
So
nobody can tell us we are not safe.
So why should one join you when you are not safe?
No, Professor, you're absolutely okay not to join Uganda People's Congress, but I'm delighted that many young people join Uganda People's Congress.
No, I am glad to join the Uganda People's Congress if it is united.
Okay, but as I said at the beginning of the conversation, we were rather lonely from 1985. So on this mess, we've not been... Look, now actually, let me now answer the point about Amin.
Yeah, the nation state.
The overthrow by Idi Amin, Amin did not overthrow the UPC government from nowhere. Amin was a foreign agent used by Anglo-America and Israel to overthrow a government. So you see the politics of ideology. UPC's position on liberation struggles in Southern Africa, UPC's position, very strategic, political position on the Sudan, the fact that UPC was strategically engaged with the Lumumba's forces in Congo, UPC's move to the left, which was not a comfortable thing for Anglo-America, unlike these guys who play politics of Mabati. For us, we play politics of ideology and very strategic issues. You know what I'm saying? So that was quite discomforting. So UPC had to be got rid of. So it is more simple, more simplistic to focus on UPC per se and Amin, when really the thing is Uganda was positioning itself that we wanted to protect our national borders for Ugandans, wanted to protect our natural resources for the people of Uganda, and in this very particular case that
under which ideology?
Anglo-America. It's a social democratic political party.
Can I tell you the de facto ideology of UPC?
You can tell me that, but let me just make this point.
Which actually you have, it has been inherited by NRM. I tell you, militarism.
All right,
Professor, you can't qualify that. I didn't expect this conversation to take this route, but Professor, yeah. Professor, that you can't qualify that. And I think to push UPC along those lines is in a way to cleanse NRM, which I think young Ugandans would find it very, very, very unkind, because what we're trying to do here is, I know it's very difficult for certain situations in Uganda for UPC to be presented as neat. But I want to tell you, we're the neatest political party in this country. And on matters per what we're discussing today, we shall wake up. All this political mess taking place in the country, created by NRA and DP and their groupings, and some of the other nuanced suggestions that have come up in this conversation, UPC will have the last laugh. So in terms of the
No, you shouldn't laugh when the country is polarized.
But last laugh, you're the one who used it.
I don't laugh. I am concerned that we are politically polarized, regardless of which person.
But that is not the meaning of last laugh, Professor.
What is the meaning?
Anyway, so what I was saying is...
I'm not laughing. I can't laugh when the country is burning. That is like the proverbial young of a baboon.
Yeah. I think that by last laugh he means that they will be the
I will not be happy.
Victors.
I will not be happy.
Yeah.
Who is the revenge of victor? Myself? When Uganda is not a nation state, I want to be a victor.
No, he means UPC. But
from the beginning, we tried from 1952, to guide this country. Yeah. We pushed this country to independence. I'm very proud of our record. From independence to 1971, I'm very proud of what we did. Notwithstanding the challenges that we did, I'm very proud of what we did. Yeah. From 1971, in exile to push Idi Amin, which was another very lonely game for UPC. I'm very proud of our track record. From 1980, after the general elections, up to 1985, when DP, NRA, and their other foreign friends came in to overthrow our government, I'm very proud of our records, notwithstanding the challenges and the track record, some of the problems that we actually did have. From 1985 July to today, I'm very proud of UPC's commitments and focus on fighting NRA dictatorship and dictatorships in this country and across the country. At the moment, the challenge facing UPC is, the Akena element which Museveni kisses by force, that's not Uganda People's Congress. The Walupiri thing, whatever is holding in his suit, whatever the case is, neither here nor there. Members of Uganda People's Congress, I go around this country. We've got our structures, we've got our systems. Many young guys are coming to join us. No. In the event that we resolve this matter of leadership only in Uganda People's Congress, as a political party, we remain consistent, we remain focused, we remain with the material position, and in the event that this matter is resolved positively, I can't wait to join the leaders of other political parties on issues to try and grant hope to the people of Uganda. And I don't think there is anybody at this material time, consider the mess taking place, including in NRA's Museveni in Chad on the road. I don't know who has the better hope for this country than Uganda People's Congress.
We know.
All right, I would like we conclude this show with a segment on political party financing. I mean, we all are aware of what is taking place in FDC. There are claims of infiltration, dirty money. And these are claims which have been around. Yeah. And there are also political analysts who say that the opposition is weak because Mr. Museveni has been able to use money, take advantage of what Professor described as poverty, populace. So what does that mean? Where do opposition political parties pick themselves up? I mean, in order to organize, you need finances. And then Professor says the population are poor and therefore they cannot finance their political parties. The country is captured, so many of you would say, which means that the state resources are controlled by the president, who you want to remove. So, Professor.
That is a very big dilemma, by the way, because the political party has been bastardized and vulgarized, focusing on the money of individuals. Even when you are mobilizing, he says he's an activist and he's mobilizing, he's a leader of a party. When you try to mobilize in the past, people actually would fund you, would support you without asking for money. Today, they ask for money. So, kleptocracy, the rule of money, has now overshadowed other values and attitudes. So we have got a disposition and attitude that politics is the pursuit of money for individual benefit. That is a very big challenge. Now, that cancer has spread from the voters to the political parties. So the political parties are faced with the challenge of funding elections, and normally we, the voters, are the ones who are demanding for that money instead of being the ones to contribute. So now the political class in different political parties are pursuing individual interests, not the public good, and it has evolved over a period of time. Even since NRM came into power, supposedly for a correct line, then we are now the pursuit of individual benefits at the expense of the public good. So when political parties now pursue money, and whoever has money dangles it and you go for it, that is very dangerous. And this is more dangerous than political polarization along values or styles of leadership. Those ones you can easily reconcile because they are not moral questions. What is happening in FDC, if we go by what we hear and what is in the public media, is unlike what was happening, the polarization which was Najana Nkumbi versus Katonga, along styles of mobilization. That is clear, that is easy to overcome. Now, what we are hearing is not a political question. What we are hearing is a moral question, if it is true. Now, it is not in the political realm. It is in the moral realm, moral ethical. Political ethics, political morality. If you get money from whatever source and you don't want to disclose this, well and good, you don't want to disclose it, but again, it must not be from a source which, in the perception of your followers, was a wrong source. Now that moves away from political differences and tensions and contradictions and contestations, it goes into the realm of morality. Now, once it goes into the realm of morality, it is very hard to solve, because if you know that so and so's integrity was compromised, it is very hard unless that person comes to confess the Christian way. But even in the Christian way, I don't know, is anybody a lawyer here? None of us is a lawyer?
No, not today.
You are a lawyer. Yeah. You know, even if you go to church and confess that I stole, yeah, that does not exonerate the courts going for you.
Exactly.
The courts will first go for you. That getting saved will be used as a mitigating factor, but they will go for you.
Exactly.
So the moment the question of morality now, the question of getting money from sources that you don't approve, if at all it happened, because for us we are just hearing from the political party, we are hearing from the media. Now, when it comes to using money immorally, unethically, when it touches the question of integrity, this goes beyond political differences that you may find, like, say, in UPC. For them, they are fighting over positions, differences over personalities, differences over leadership styles. But once it goes to it crosses into the problem, into the side of moral question, it becomes very complicated. The question of integrity, the question of ethics. Now, what we are hearing in FDC, if indeed it is true, but anyway, the contestation now is about morality, not political differences. This is not political differences. So I am told there is going to be a national conference, a national council meeting, and the committee is going to present. I don't know how they are going to resolve the question of political immorality and integrity. That one now is very, very complicated, which is found in some other parties. But now our politics has reached another stage of political morality, especially the use of money. This maniocracy, the democracy of money, which is not only in the political leadership, but in followership, the use of money. He is in a political contestation. He wants to stand, I guess. You will see when you reach there when it comes to money.
I'm already experiencing it daily.
You go to mobilize people, the first thing they ask you is not what values do you stand for? It is, can you please bring here money? Exactly. And when you don't have it, and you find it very hard to mobilize, never think that peasants are easy to mobilize. Peasants are not easy to mobilize because they have not formed their mind in a certain value system. Therefore, you might be attracted by somebody who has money, and you go and get it. Now, when your followership does not agree with the source of that money, then, and they look at it as compromising integrity, then there will be more polarization in your party, which may spill over to other parties, and hence the national question. And nobody should be jubilating. I am telling you, NRM should not jubilate, NOP should not jubilate, UPC should not jubilate, because there is a crisis in FDC. The crisis in FDC has a potential to spill over to all these crises. Unfortunately, Uganda is within. Let me conclude by this one. It's very important. Uganda is in the Great Lakes region.
Exactly.
It is prone to genocide. It is prone to a failed state or a failing state. We have a failed state in Sudan, North Sudan, Khartoum. A failed state in South Sudan. A failed state in Ethiopia. A failed state in Somalia. A failed state in Congo. A near failed state in some of these banana republics. If we jubilate about polarization, we are just like the proverbial young monkey.
Thank you so much, Professor. I'd like now to bring in Mr. Tieno. You know, some would argue that one of the reasons why you are not as, why you're not doing as much as you'd like to do as a party is because you have a huge resource constraint as UPC. Given what's happening in FDC, what's your own experience in the UPC?
My own personal team has got a resource.
But I thought you wanted to ask him whether if the money was dangled to him, he would also grab it.
Yeah, he will. He would answer that as well.
Yeah. No, my own campaign, if I had resources, the political terrain in this country would be very different. So I think Professor is right about the limitations, the money limitations. That's my own campaign. As a political party, yes, we have issues and challenges of money. Although I have always cautiously told my colleagues in the UPC that our problem is really not money for the moment. Our problem is organization and leadership. And I'll explain why to conclude this very important segment. As it were, in UPC, actually, I think, Professor, that one of the simmering things is between the Walubiri-Akena thing is also politics of money, and that is who controls Uganda House. Disputes around Milton Obote Foundation resources. This is an open thing. You know, I better put it in this context because it helps in an objective way. So the ownership of and control of Milton Obote Foundation, while it should actually be our advantage, it is basically our in a way serving to cause challenges in terms of who basically leads the political party, which is basically unfortunate. That said, I have a very political view about political parties. As I said, I have a very specific experience on this panel or on this. Political parties at foundations, and Milton Obote was very definitive to James Ranyarere and Sam Odaka a few years ago about leadership, that you should really not be a leader of a political party. And of course, this is new to most of our young guys. You should not be a leader of a political party when you don't have capacity to raise funding. You should not be a millionaire political leader. You just need to have leadership qualities, part of which should necessarily ideally being able to attract resources, work with people, get key people with whom you're able to then go ahead and generate resources. But generally, ideally, political leadership, political parties that attract money will tend to be political parties with a clear sense of leadership, attractive, charismatic leaders at the top, values, and in this case, manifestos or programs that are attractive to people. On that basis, you'll get money from members, you'll get money from supporters, you'll get people who are normally private donors, which is actually not unusual. They will normally be people who want to make contributions to political parties and remain anonymous. That generally happens. In the Ugandan case, for big money, I get concerned, and for I'm not saying in the FDC case I want to have a particular opinion, but there's no reason why a donor cannot be there and they're anonymous. That normally happens. Okay. Political parties grounded worthy of names should have capacities to mobilize and organize. And by the way, I was giving an opinion to a television network the other day. My own opinion is this, that actually maybe if we're to review this polity going forward, post-Museveni, maybe we need to review the idea that the taxpayers should be funding political parties. I think my opinion is that this thing should go back to political parties and political party leaders, and they should be able to use their capacity to go around and mobilize resources for them. So let it be the basis of their own strength, rather than taxpayers funding them. Or else at the moment it might seem attractive, but it seems to be a pot of blackmail by the dictatorship.
All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much.
Now, let me make the last statement here.
I want to give each one about 30 seconds to give our viewers your last message.
Yes, one of us here talked about the elephant in the room. There are very many elephants now. Another elephant is militarism, which he wants to deny, but it started way from colonial periods through Obote one, and I mean even worse indeed. And there is militarism now. Yeah. Even if you have money, as long as there is a militarism in political competition, you see, you cannot compete with somebody who has the military. You cannot, because somebody has a monopoly of the military and you do not have, and you are competing. If you play football or soccer with somebody who has boots and another one doesn't have boots, you meet your legs and you will see whether your soul will not go off. That is one. Another elephant in the room actually is what we have just finished with, the question of commercializing politics. It is also an elephant in the room. Now that commercializing of politics has come up now, especially now the issue we are discussing of FDC, but I don't think it is limited to FDC. Now it is a question of integrity and morality. That is another elephant. Now elephants have produced other elephants, militarism, and then maniocracy, kleptocracy, that is a correct word, but let's use it as maniocracy because that's better understood. Now the question of morality and integrity is cropping in. So under such circumstances, we are bastardizing politics. And when we are bastardizing politics, nobody should jubilate. We can have a failed state in Uganda, God forbid, but we are not going to proselytize about not having it. We are not going to say it will come from heaven or it will be forced onto citizens. We must work towards having a nation state, resolving the national question consciously and deliberately, and not through hypocrisy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Atieno, your final thoughts?
Yes, my final thoughts are this, that I reject the idea that militarism can be associated with the UPC. The one thing that is associated with militarism is the incident in Mengo. The incident in Mengo was a result of a central government being attacked by Buganda, and the army sent there as a last resort. The people who went to Mengo, it was not a planned thing that tomorrow we're going to attack Mengo. Police officers went, they were shot at. I am getting tired talking about these things. They attacked, they shot at. There's police reinforcement, they attacked. The army went in as a last resort. If that is militarism, then I don't know, we need to be able to revisit this. In Obote too, we won the election convincingly. DP lost, NRA lost. They went to the bush. A bunch of bandits went and killed our people down there. There is no evidence. You guys are young. You're a young lawyer. Go into the Hansard, look through the whole thing from 1981 and 85. Show me anywhere where there is a sense of militarism under UPC.
Do you remember Obote's statement that
Professor,
where are your generals? He was asking.
That's a common sense.
Where
Oh,
are
no,
your
no,
generals?
no, let me answer that. No, it's important. I need to answer that.
Yeah.
But this is Obote said that within the context of the
I thought you wanted to say he did say it.
No,
I'm sorry.
no, I think, no, yeah, but I think, Professor, I'm extremely disappointed with you today. But anyway, I need to say that on
Go
record.
ahead. Me, I will tell the truth
Look,
whether you are disappointed or not.
you're extremely misleading.
And you are not the only ones I'm telling.
No,
I will tell everybody.
No,
Professor,
it's actually very unfortunate actually coming from you.
No, I want him to be disappointed with me by telling him that UPC used militarism and has been inherited by NRM.
All right,
No,
Professor, but we are out of time.
That's a lie that NRA played in the last 40 years didn't work. What Obote said was trying to talk about who are the people who mobilize and organize liberation struggles to get rid of Idi Amin. Right. That Obote was very proud of. I'm very proud of it, and it's actually true.
All right.
Semugere could not show or prove any evidence of fighting against Idi Amin. It's basically that.
Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for your wonderful thoughts. I have enjoyed so much listening to you. I hope that our viewers have enjoyed as much as I have. And so to our viewers, I want to thank you very much for always tuning in. You've been watching Focus on Parliament. I've been your host, Harris Ocampo. From me and the crew, we say bye and wish you a very nice weekend.